So this is Crash. You guys heard about Crash. We've renamed her Peyton. She's no longer Crash. She was Crash while she was still in Mommy's tummy.
Yeah. Bill and I worked pretty hard to start our own family. So when I did thankfully become pregnant, we decided that we should get a safer car, one that made sense. And we picked the Mercedes S63.
I think the date was November 18th.
Bill and I are both attorneys. So I had a court hearing that was scheduled for 1:30. I'm headed to my court hearing. I was maybe on the freeway 10 seconds and the traffic had come to a complete halt. So I stopped. And I look in my rearview mirror, because anytime anyone typically comes to a stop, or you shouldn't be coming to a stop, your gut reaction or your instinct is to look in your rearview mirror and make sure the person behind you is coming to a stop, which they weren't. So they were coming at me at freeway speeds. And 2 seconds later, I was hit by a woman going, they estimated between 65 and 68 miles an hour.
I picked up the phone and just remember being told that there was been a car accident and that the car was totaled on the freeway and that they were taking Carla to University Medical Center Trauma Center. The police said that other driver never even hit their brakes. It drove her from the far right-hand lane across all the lanes of traffic, and then she hit the cement center median on the freeway.
Once she hit me, though, and I knew, I had that realization that I'm crossing, I felt I was going to die. That moment in time, during that moment, pretty much said goodbye to everybody. I remember looking up at the sky as I'm traveling across the interstate and just loving everybody, being thankful anyway, and just sending my love to everybody. To Bill and my baby, especially.
I remember calling the doctors, you know, the OBGYN on the way and trying to, you know, because knowing Carla was pregnant, trying to reach them and get the word out to the doctors that we may have problems, you know, and that she'd been in an accident.
You know, I had my cognition, I could talk, so I think part of me was like, wow, I'm okay, I don't have a head injury, I don't think, you know, there's no, I know what's going on. And then the paramedics arrived, and I will say one of the first things out of his mouth after they asked me some basic cognitive questions was, this car saved your life. Which I had already figured that one out. Once they got me on the flatboard and in the ambulance, I was pretty redundant about, please just check the baby first, please just check that the baby has a heartbeat, please just check that the baby has a heartbeat.
The paramedics confirmed that they were monitoring the baby's heartbeat and that and the baby was stable.
And so, you know, it was kind of this sigh of relief.
We came real close to losing Carla and the baby. And I think we feel in our heart that car, that Mercedes big S-Class sedan, saved her life.
You know, once things sort of calmed down and Bill said, you know, now we're going to start looking for another car again, you know, what do you want? And I just kind of looked up at him and I said, are you kidding? I want the exact same car.
The what ifs. You know, I've thought about that a lot. You play the what if game. It's inevitable. You're gonna do it. And say I survived, but, you know, my legs didn't make it out of the car with me. Where would I be now? What would I be doing now? I mean, just a matter of millimeters could have ended my hopes and dreams as an athlete very easily.
That day, we were just any old regular weekend up in Santa Barbara, and to enjoy Danny's soccer games.
So we started back, and I guess we're probably about 45 minutes in the trip, and you know, the 101 freeway up there is not well lit.
We're just driving along, just chatting about the night and whatever else. Cruise control, 70 miles an hour, not thinking about too much.
And I remember climbing a slight rise.
Next thing I know, the car that was in front of me swerved off the road.
I was in the passenger seat, so I think I was the first one to see the oncoming car. And I remember saying to Dan, I just said, "Oh, Dan." And it was more of a prayer than anything, because at that point, I couldn't imagine surviving.
I knew in my mind we were being hit by a drunk driver. I knew that because anyone on the freeway going 65 miles an hour in that fast lane going the wrong direction, that's not right.
I mean, you can imagine. Two cars going about 70 miles an hour in opposite directions, hitting head on.
It actually was so violent that I think I blacked out. I think we all blacked out.
I remember waking up, and I remember my husband saying, "I'm okay. Dan, are you okay?" And Danny says, I'm okay. I'm thinking in my head, how can they possibly be okay?
I mean, as soon as we stopped, I remember looking at Dan and saying, can you get out? Can you get out of the car? And he says, "No, my leg's trapped."
Danny, I was really thinking could have some major injuries to his legs.
I had the dashboard just covering me. It was the steering wheel was in my lap, and the car was just smashed up against me. But there was definitely that cage that my body was supposed to be in and be protected in, and it worked. I knew I was okay, and I was worried about everyone else, as you do in your family. And my mom was in and out of consciousness, and that was scary.
Danny said, "Mom, reach for my hand." And this is when I'll get emotional, because he said, "Hold my hand." And he put his hand back, and all I could do was sit there and hold his hand. But that's the kind of boy he is.
You could see the way the 101 freeway is set up. It's hilly, it's on the cliffs. And you could see the fire engines and the ambulance coming. You could see them coming, but it was just like, it couldn't come fast enough. It really couldn't.
The next decision for me was to stay with Dan, because they said they're going to take 45 minutes to an hour to cut, with a Jaws of Life, cut him out of the car.
My little brother, who doesn't seem very little, but to me he always is, I had to sit in the car and while he was trapped, as the firemen asked my dad to stay with him or go with my mom. And how brave he must have had to been to say, "Dad, go with Mom."
They had to take the door off to get me out. And this is the emergency brake. And there's just a little space back there that my legs fit in, and I slid in and out of there safely, and I was well protected.
When he showed up, it was just a great moment in my life.
We all checked out fine. I can't even explain how lucky and fortunate we were to be in that car and to be that safe. We couldn't believe it. Danny played his soccer game the next day, which was amazing. I spent one night in the hospital just so they could check everything out. I checked out okay, and actually was released the next day to go watch him play soccer.
We were in the wrong place at the wrong time, but we were in the right car. We were in the right car.
I always felt that I was a good driver, and I was never in a car accident before, but you don't know what the other guy's gonna do. It was me, my mom, my dad, my son, and my daughter. There wasn't even a lot of traffic around. It was like a calm, nice day. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy came.
A tractor-trailer performed an illegal U-turn and did not see Christine and hit her.
I can't even describe to you the impact and the crash, having an 18-wheeler coming at you at full speed and connecting onto your car.
And we hit, and we got dragged to the other side of the road. We went from the right side all the way to the left side and ended up on the embankment on the left.
The car was actually, from what I understand, hooked into the truck, so the truck was dragging it, and when the truck actually hit a tree, broke the car free.
But the one thing for me was not hearing anything in the back. They were okay.
To me, it was a miracle that we walked down the way we did.
Yes.
Seriously.
You think about the worst, obviously, but you always know in the back of your head, you're hoping for the best in the back of your head. Knowing that, that my family could have been wiped out in one accident, everybody.
That 18-wheeler should have crushed us. We all should have been crushed.
The car never gave up. The car stood its ground on four wheels. That's what was very surprising to me.
That car saved their lives, without a doubt. That was the one thing on my head as I was driving down to the hospital, was that, thank God, they were in that car and not some tin can.
To have the children in that car and nothing happened, just that in itself is a miracle.
To know that they all could have been dead, and to get to the hospital and to see, Julia crying because she's upset, or John crying because she's upset, was fine. I can handle that. I tell you, you'll get your friends and some of your family members say, "Oh, what do you need that car for?" That's why I need that car.
I mean, it was the first day back to work in the beginning of 2011. I've had a pretty good 2011, and it might have been different if the car had acted differently that day. So, yeah. It was an absolutely gorgeous morning, a little bit chilly, 55, 56 degrees. I remember thinking, wow, what a great way to start the new year. I turned just for a brief moment. And because I was distracted, I didn't notice what was going on. The lane that I was traveling in had come to a complete stop due to traffic. I never saw the traffic stop. I remember briefly hearing multiple beeps. I was traveling over 45 miles an hour. I grabbed the steering wheel, and I saw the car in front of me. As I was rushing toward it, it was at a dead stop. It was clearly too late for me to do anything. I heard the beep, beep, beep as my Mercedes collision system automatically kicked in. The next thing I know, my Mercedes was stopped without hitting the car in front of me. And I just was shaking. The Mercedes stopped itself. And at that moment, I didn't even know what happened. It all happened so fast. It took me some time to recover. You know, I don't think my heart rate came down for 20 minutes. I was shaking in the car. The thought of what I could have done to someone else because I momentarily wasn't paying attention, wow, that's a scary feeling. Well, I've been doing software development my whole life, and I have a great deal of respect for innovation, particularly in the realm of software. Watching what Mercedes has done in bringing together these sensors in a car with software that has the ability to save your life, you know, that really is the fulfillment of software. That's magical software. So I have a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for the innovation that Mercedes is bringing into their cars. Of course, I have a new level of respect as it begins to affect your own life and your own family.
Well, that's when we just got our house. That's when me and my brother were little.
Like many others, I work really, really hard. But you work hard as a means to an end, and that end is really about being a great dad and a great husband. I feel very indebted to Mercedes. They fundamentally altered the year I was having. You know, of course, we don't know what would have happened if I had actually been in a collision, but certainly I could have affected someone else's life. And so there's somebody else who's indebted to Mercedes as well, but doesn't even know it.